Nidoking has a bit of a reputation. It's probably most famous for being the Pokemon of choice in speedrunning Gen 1 because of its solid stats, wide move pool, and the fact you can evolve relatively early in the game. For me, it was in Gen 1 where you can pick Nidoran up before battling Brock if he was struggling, especially in Yellow because it could learn Double Kick. Then I'd keep it around because it was just awesome. There's a reason people speedrun the game with this king. However, we're not trying to solo Gen 1 with Nidoking, this is Gen 4. And things aren't as smooth sailing. Firstly, though a decent Pokemon, Nidoking's base stats aren't pushing 500 and they're quite evenly distributed. For some context, I did a Gengar run in Diamond and its stats are exactly 500, but it's a glass cannon. As you can imagine, you have an easier time in a run, well, not easier, but it's more feasible the higher your chosen Pokemon's base stats. And with that said, while Nidoking does resist a number of moves, it's also weak to a number of common move types, like Ground, Water, Psychic, and Ice, but Nidoking more than makes up for it with its giant move pool. Not its learn set, mind you, which is pretty shocking. We're stuck with Peck, Focus Energy, Double Kick, and Poison Sting until level 23, and the moves we naturally learn aren't going to help us out too much. What's awesome is the TMs it can learn. We have some serious coverage going on. All the big hitters are there. Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Surf, Poison Jab, Earthquake, the list just goes on. Shame that a number of these moves are locked behind the game corner or move tutors, so we'll just have to make do. But before we can get into the run, let's take a look at the rules. Rule number 1 is we can only use Nidoking in battle. It's a solo run after all, but we can capture other Pokemon for HM Butler purposes. We can't use items in battle, held items are fine. We can only battle trainers that impede story progression. If it's a wild encounter, we just have to run away. And saving during the Elite Four is a little more complicated, so we'll cover that more flexible rule nearer the time. Starting the game, Nidoking will be taking the place of Chimchar because it's Piplup and its evolutions that are going to be causing us the most trouble during this run. For now, however, Barry has no chance against us, but he'll be evening those odds pretty soon. One of the main issues with trying to do these challenges in Gen 3 and 4 is that Game Freak had the annoying tendency to make the very first gym leader you face a rock type. This basically walls a number of Pokemon like Flying, Ice, and even ones that simply can't output the damage needed despite being legendaries and pseudo-legendaries. So technically, Nidoking is more viable than the likes of Ho-Oh and Rayquaza. This doesn't make Rourke a pushover though, because we're not one of those aforementioned legendary Pokemon. We do have the advantage of being able to level up quicker because experience goes a lot further. Instead of being around level 7 or 8 for Rourke, we're actually level 10. Our best and really only move is Double Kick, which is of course going to be super effective against his Pokemon. There's very little to this first gym leader battle outside of keep spamming Double Kick, hope for a crit, and hope you don't take too much damage. Nidoking does resist Rourke's moves, turning this battle into the most trivial fight of the game. Well, there is one slightly more trivial later on. From Oreburgh Gym, we are not going to encounter any real obstacles until we eventually reach Eterna City and have to tangle with Gardenia at the gym. Nidoking is obviously not weak to grass moves, but it is weak to being repeatedly hit. A base attack stat in the 90s is nothing to scoff at, but Peck is. At 35 base power, even though it's super effective, it's just not putting up the numbers we need. Not only that, Gardenia's first Pokemon, the Turtwig, loves to throw up a Reflect its very first turn. Now we're doing even less damage. Not to mention all the Pokemon have Grass Knot, a move that does more damage the heavier the opponent's Pokemon. Technically, it'll be rare for your average trainer to have a heavy Pokemon during this stage of the game, so it won't cause much harm. But for Nidoking, it's putting up some numbers. So while Nidoking's getting its HP shaved off attempting to get past Turtwig, and Turtwig being able to cause us some pain, it's not looking good when we get through to Gardenia's second Pokemon, Cherrim. If Turtwig's use Sunny Day, Cherrim will change to its alternate form. That doesn't matter too much. The bigger problem is if it uses a move like Leech Seed more often than not. However, it tends to use Magical Leaf or Grass Knot, and our adventures end in there. Then on those extremely rare occasions when you get to a final Pokemon, Roserade, which also has a Citrus Berry, it will have no problem taking you out. So while I thought Rogue was often the biggest roadblock, our trouble's just beginning. At one point I thought we'd have to end it here, and that is a feeling that would resurface time and time again during this run. Right now, at this point in the game, we've barely got anything. No additional moves, no useful items, nothing. I thought there was a light at the end of the tunnel when I learned you could pick up Taunt. Taunt only allows the opponent Pokemon to use attacking moves, no more Reflect. But, and it's a big one, you'd have to fight a trainer to access the move, which is a no-no. So we're back to square one. If we were a few levels higher, 23, we'd have access to Thrash. Maybe that would have helped. As it stands, our only chance is to hit and a hope. Against Turtwig, as we've been doing every single battle so far, we'll be using Peck. Frustratingly, this does just under half Turtwig's HP. Then, right on cue, it'll use Reflect. but this is where I altered a few things. The only way to get past Reflect is with a crit. We have Focus Energy, which increases our crit chance. After the first hit, we've been going for that and hoping. Also worth mentioning is Nidoking's ability, Poison Point. When an opposing Pokemon uses a contact move against Nidoking, there's a chance it gets poisoned. Extremely useful ability. So Turtwig gets poisoned after damaging us, and we manage to score a crit next turn and knock it out. Pretty good. At 59 HP, we're on to Cherim. We get extremely lucky here because not only does our first pet crit, Cherim then uses Safeguard, which is kind of useless. Then our second pet crits, and we knock it out without taking a single point of damage. Leveling up to 22, we're now in the best position against Roserade than we've ever been in. Reflect wears off as it's fielded. Our peck is still doing under half, but luckily its Stun Spore misses. Unfortunately, next turn, while we hit, we don't crit. The Citrus Berry activates to heal Gardenia's ace, and we then get tagged with Grass Knot, taking us into Orange Bar, but we had an Oreberry equipped to bring us back up to 38. If she doesn't use a potion, one more peck from Nidoking will knock it out. But then Roserade goes first, must have been a speed tie, and we hang on with just 4 HP. We hit it with peck, and that is the end of the battle. A little closer than I would have hoped. Now that we have the bike and cut quite a few things open up, one extremely important thing we can now do, the run would not have been possible without it, is to head to the secret area of Wayward Cave. Along with a rare candy, we can pick up an essential TM, Earthquake. I didn't know it at the time, but this TM was going to come in handy extremely soon. For now though, we're blissfully unaware as we set our sights on Fantina, leader of Hearthome Gym. Nidoking does resist poison, but it is weak to Psychic, so the biggest threat for Fantina's 3 Pokemon is the Mismagius, which has Psybeam. Before rolling into this battle, Nidoking basically had no moves that were able to damage her Pokemon. The best move that we do have is Thief, a base 60 power dark move that can steal the opponent's held item if you're not already holding one yourself. However, we are holding Shell Bell, again an item that you can pick up from Hearthome, one I had no idea was going to become so vital in the long run. Shell Bell will give you back 1/8 of the damage that you deal against your foe and is basically a less good version of Leftovers. Problem is, Fantina doesn't just start with Mismagius. Duskull's proving to be a bigger issue right now. This thing loves to use Will-o-the-Wisp, which if it hits, inflicts us with Burn. Burn lowers our attack and will shave off 1/16 of our HP each turn. Despite being 75% accurate, it hits a lot, and every time that it hits, we reset. What's equally annoying is that Nidoking and Thief aren't doing over half damage to Duskull. So after 2 rounds, supposing we get that far, Fantina's sweeping in with a Super Potion. On those rare occasions where we both do not get burned and are able to knock Duskull out, Fantina will send out Mismagius. Mismagius loves to use Confuse Ray and Psybeam in that order. The latter does a ton of damage, way over half, and then we've got a 50% chance to hit ourselves in the face. Suffice to say, we have not been lasting long against Fantina. Much like with Gardenia, Nidoking having a massive move pool doesn't mean much if we're not allowed to dip our horn in the water, meaning we simply can't access a bunch of moves. Thank the Pokegods that Nidoking has a big spike on their head because we've got no choice but to just keep hitting it against the wall, just like Gardenia. But it pays off because Nidoking can learn one move, a move that's located in that little park in Hearthome where you can walk your Pokemon about. Here you'll find a track. If the opponent Pokemon is one of the opposite gender and you use the move, they have a chance to not attack that turn. Yeah, it's kind of cheesy, but I'm not putting it in the same league as Double Team, and we really are at a loss here. Rest assured that we'll only be using it for this battle because it becomes pretty useless afterwards. First thing we do when we come up against Duskull is use Attract. We are getting extremely godlike luck as Duskull keeps getting immobilized by Love while we use Thief, which we only have 10 PP of by the way, so we do have to be careful. After a couple of these, Fantina will heal the Duskull, better it than Mismagius. Eventually, we can finish it off to welcome in Fantina's ace. Just like with Duskull, first things first, we need to make Mismagius fall in love with us, but it's quicker and uses Psybeam, which does 32 damage, just keeping us above half HP. Attract has hit though, so we just keep hammering Thief. Despite Mismagius not hitting us somehow, I'd forgotten that Fantina had another super potion and she ends up using it. On top of that, we also get confused along the way, and it's a miracle we haven't hit ourselves in confusion. Afraid that I'd have too few thieves for a Pokemon, the Haunter, I switch over to Peck instead. The move's barely tickling Mismagius, but it's still not attacking us. With a final Peck, it goes down and we haven't even taken a single hit after Psybeam. After leveling up to 25, Fantina fields the Haunter. Like we did with the 2 other Pokemon, Attract is the first move that we use, but Haunter uses Confuse Ray. Next turn, we hit ourselves confusion. Then Haunter gets off a hypnosis, putting Nidoking to sleep. Snoozing for several turns, Haunter's moved on to Shadow Claw and is slowly chipping away at our HP. We're taken all the way down to 19 HP before finally waking up and retaliating with Beef. It comes crazily close to knocking Haunter out, but it just manages to hang on with a sliver of health. Finally, next turn, Nidoking managed to not hit itself in confusion, uses Thief, and finally brings the battle to an end. But if I thought that Nidoking would get to rest for a while, I was in for a pretty rude wake-up call. Before we're fully allowed to continue along Route 209, Barry's waiting for us, and he's got some friends. His team now consists of the Staravia, Prinplup, Ponyta, and Roselia. His first two Pokemon are the worst. First off, Staravia has Intimidate, which lowers our attack by 1 stage when it first comes out. This ability is a killer for these types of runs, and it almost did just hit. Prinplup is super annoying because it has Bubble Beam, which we're weak to, and we currently have no special attacking moves that would be effective anyway. Typically, you'd go into the battle with Barry. He starts off with Staravia. Now our attack's lowered by 1 stage. Moves like Thrash, 90 base power, now do less than half damage. And this Staravia is playing 40 chess, because if its HP passes a certain threshold, it will then use Endeavour, often dragging Nidoking right down into single digits. Pair that with Staravia's lover using Double Team, and this thing is unbelievably annoying. On those rare occasions that you can even get past Staravia at decent HP, Prinplup will come out, you will get a hit on it, sure, but then it'll use Bubble Beam and you're done. I had totally no idea how to approach this battle. I was thinking about the moves that I picked up so far, thought about rare candies, did a bunch of move calculations, but nothing seemed to be working out. All we had were attacking moves, and Nidoking just can't survive what's being thrown at it. The frustrating thing is that Nidoking can learn Shockwave, and it's literally just past Barry. All I could do was try a bunch of stuff to see what stuck. We had Return, which was maybe about 70 base power right now. Technically, Thrash is more powerful, but it leaves us confused, so it isn't really viable. Another move that we had, which is also 70 base power, is Secret Power. Depending on where you fight a trainer, this move changes in its secondary effect. Because we're technically inside, Secret Power has a chance to paralyze the opponent. That's a start, I guess. Currently, Secret Power, thanks to Intimidate, does about 1/4. Crit, however, can cause a fair bit of damage. If you are extremely lucky, you'll get some para hacks going on, or pull out a crit, but that's all you can really hope for against Staravia. What about Prinplup? Well, for a while, I thought Shadow Claw was the move. It's got a higher crit rate, and we really need some of those right now. But in the end, even that's not terribly effective against Prinplup, because at most, we can only get off 2 attacks before we're defeated. At one point, I even dabbled in Rock Tomb, same result, totally useless. The only move that I had, the only move that would make this possible, was Earthquake. I suppose that's not even true. Earthquake's just one part. You have to get insanely lucky with a bunch of other stuff too. After like an hour, let's see how it goes. Against Staravia, we're going to be using Secret Power. Ideally, first turn, we want this move to cause paralysis. We don't get it here, but Staravia's used Double Team, so that's okay, I guess. Next turn, we don't get the paralysis, nor do we get another Double Team. Instead, it's Wing Attack, and we're on 65 HP. Finally, on our third go at it, Staravia's left on a sliver of health, but it's paralyzed. It now loves to use Endeavour, but the paralysis procs, so it's pretty much defeated. We hit, get a little bit of HP back with Shell Bell, and also level up to 26. On 71 HP, Prinplup's out. We use Earthquake, doesn't do over half. It can do over half, it just needs a high roll, and that's rare. Bubble Beam does a ton of damage, and we're on 31 HP. We can't survive another. What's Earthquake gonna do? It hits and crits, super lucky. On 36 HP now, Barry will send out Ponyta. As long as we outspeed, which we do, Earthquake will destroy Ponyta. We'll one-shot it and gain back some much-needed HP. At 43 HP, it's Roselia. Even though it's weak to Peck, Earthquake is just so much more powerful. Despite coming oh so close to knocking Roselia out, it hangs on and then uses Stun Spore. We managed to avoid it, it could have been GG if we hadn't. Nidoking lines up a Peck to finish Roselia off. Not only does it hit, but it even crits, super clutch luck, and Barry is finally defeated. That was something else. I'm sure that this is the last time he'll be causing us any problems this run. With that all said and done, we can finally continue with the game all the way up to Maylene in Veilstone City. For her combo of fighting and steel, we have a decent advantage on our side. Though Peck it's technically super effective, the raw power of Earthquake and the stab make it a far more potent option. Against Meditite, though it can get in an attack first, Earthquake sends it to Nirvana. Maylene will then pivot to Lucario. Chances are it's faster, and it is, hitting us with Metal Claw, but there's no way another Earthquake won't send it to the Shadow Realm. Finally, there's Machoke. It's got strength, but Nidoking is stronger. A couple more Earthquakes are easily able to defeat it. I think after the 2 major battles we just had, we earned a little break. Another reason why reaching Veilstone can often be a turning point in a run is the number and variety of TMs available at the department store. You can get heavy hitters like Thunder, Fire Blast and Blizzard, all of which Nidoking can learn. Though they're special moves and Nidoking isn't as blessed in that department, the sheer raw damage output of the moves can often make up for that. And against Crash Awake in Pastoria, we may just need to bring out the big guns. Nidoking is obviously 2 times weak to water moves, and Wake's team of Gyarados with Intimidate, by the way, Quagsire and Floatzel may prove a problem. Firstly, as mentioned, there's Gyarados. Not only does it have Intimidate, it's got Waterfall. Now that Waterfall is a physical move, it becomes devastating when Gyarados uses it. The only way we're able to stop Gyarados from using Waterfall is to knock it out in one hit, and we're only able to achieve that with Thunder, which it's double weak to. But then, Quagsire quickly becomes a new problem. A move like Secret Power is barely causing any damage, and its Water Ground typing make Earthquake's damage equally abysmal. However, I did actually think ahead here. The one area that Nidoking is lacking in the move department is in grass moves. It can't learn any in Gen 4, well, I suppose it technically can in Natural Gift. The way this move works is that its damage and typing is determined by the berry that you're holding. There's a whole chart for it on Bulbapedia. In our case, we have a Pineapple Berry, which will be a 70 base power grass move. Bad news is that Natural Gift is a physical attack, which kind of sucks, but it's the best we've got. Quagsire can't do much to us, but it all ends up stacking in the end. It also has the extremely frustrating Yawn, which will put us to sleep after a turn. This is basically a reset. We also can't take too much damage from Quagsire because Wake's final Pokemon, the Floatzel, will destroy us. It has Aqua Jet, a priority move. If Nidoking's HP is too low, it'll use it and it's night-night. In the situations where we're able to scrape by Quagsire with decent enough HP, we may be in with a chance, but we're relying on Thunder to knock Floatzel out, and that's 70% accurate. If we miss, we're basically just as done. After Floatzel uses Brine its first turn, it can switch to Aqua Jet and that's GG. Most attempts tend to end at Quagsire. Rarely we make it to Floatzel. Relying on Thunder and Natural Gift are our only options. Sooner or later, it's got to pay off. We start the battle against Gyarados with Thunder actually hitting. It's an auto reset if it doesn't. That'll be a one-shot. Now we've got Quagsire. How's Natural Gift feeling today? It ends up being a crit, so pretty spicy. We're now through to Wake's Floatzel without having taken a single hit. After leveling up to 36, all we have to do to win this battle is have Thunder hit just once. Floatzel goes first with Brine, no crit, which would have KO'd us, but we then hit it with Thunder and it's all over. Once again, Intimidate, swooping in there to be an absolute pain in the arse. There was actually a battle with Barry again before heading into Wake's gym, but with Thunder, his Staravia and Prinplup become absolutely trivial, so aren't worth talking about. Unfortunately, Barry will have his revenge later on. We have a few plot threads to follow for the time being before the next gym. One of these involves confronting Cyrus of Team Galactic. While he's no issue right now, we're pinning him because that, like Barry, will change very soon. As far as our immediate future is concerned, Byron Rourke's father is ready for some revenge of his own. Because we've got Earthquake, this battle's already been decided. Not only that, we've taught Nidoking Fire Blast. With these two moves, there's very little to talk about. Nidoking will happily sweep through his team without breaking a sweat. After what seems like an age of completing more plot-related events and trekking through Mount Coronet, we finally arrive in Snowpoint City. It's here in Snowpoint Gym that we'll be battling Candice and her ice Pokemon. Like Byron, between Earthquake and Fire Blast, this becomes another trivial battle. At this point, Nidoking has quietly started to outpace the Pokemon that it's been facing. We're around 6 levels above Candice's team, and though Nidoking's stats aren't spectacular when compared to other Pokemon we tried this with, not to mention we often miss out on EVs from battling Pokemon, it's really been holding its own in some tough situations. One point to keep in the back of your mind is the fact that we've started to more heavily rely on not only special moves, but ones that have pretty poor accuracy. Keep a pin in that one too. As we're now the proud owner of 7 badges, it's about that time where the Pokemon games decide to wrap up the evil organization plotline. In Platinum, there's a slight variance in the culmination of events. In Diamond and Pearl, at the top of the Spear Pillar, you'd battle Mars and Jupiter and then head right into battle with Cyrus. In Platinum, we're forced into the Distortion World to confront Giratina. Oftentimes, the fight with Mars and Jupiter can be a major roadblock for a few reasons. Firstly, Barry is an idiot and uses trash Pokemon and makes even worse decisions while you're getting hammered in the face. Thankfully, we don't care about Barry in these battles, so can happily spam Earthquake. However, it's important that we control which Pokemon Mars and Jupiter field. If there's the Skuntank and Purugly on the field at the same time, then it can cause some issues, but if we pick them off one by one, then we'll have a much easier time. I'd forgotten we were playing Platinum after defeating them, so was hyping myself up for a battle against Cyrus, so it was kind of a shock when we turned up in the Distortion World with Cynthia. Honestly, I can leave or take this place. In these types of runs, you're hell-bent on getting to the major battles as quickly as possible. but we've been racing towards a red light. Unlike in Diamond, Cyrus's team here is nothing to scoff at. He's got 5 Pokemon and they'll have no problem doing a number on Nidoking. The battle will always start off easy. It's Houndoom, and we are quicker than it. Earthquake will one-shot this thing easily, but then Cyrus pivots to Gyarados. And there it is, Intimidate. Probably my most hated thing this entire run. Well, we've got Thunder, right? No problem. Technically, yeah. If Thunder hits, that's an OHKO. Problem is, we're stuck with the attack debuff, and who does Cyrus send out next? Weavile. Weavile is quicker than us, and it has Ice Punch. That move will absolutely tear Nidoking a new one. If it grits, it's a one-shot. Oh, and it has a Citrus Berry too, if that wasn't enough. This Pokemon became Nidoking's roadblock. Resetting after Gyarados is one thing. Having this Pokemon absolutely fold Nidoking every time is another. What's worse is that Fire Blast can't KO Weavile outside of a crit. Ice Punch is easily doing over half each time, so it's always getting 2 attacks in and destroying us. Fire Blast may crit every so often, but that's not exactly a foolproof strat. Aside from a crit, the second best case scenario is that Fire Blast burns Weavile, but then Cyrus will use a full restore and we are back to square one. On those rare occasions where we do get the crit or burn on Weavile, for some reason it doesn't decide to use Ice Punch, and we can sometimes make it through to Cyrus's next Pokemon, Honchkrow. Great, right? Nah. The number of times that Thunder would end up missing and Honchkrow uses Air Cutter to get KO or flinch is ridiculous. I could count on my hand the times that we made it to his final Pokemon, Crobat. Of course, Batman is quicker than us. It'll use Air Cutter, and we've got so little health anyway that it's Crobat finishing us off. So that brief period of breezing through battles has come to an abrupt end. Those powerful moves are failing us because of their low accuracy and our low special attack. We are just out of reach. It is so frustrating. It's not even a range either. After dozens of attempts, I had to take a step back and kind of evaluate a path to win this. Houndoom and Gyarados, we can deal with them just fine. A little tedious, but an easy reset. Weavile, that's where the problem is. We simply can't give this thing 2 hits, so what can we do? We don't have the Quick Claw. I don't have Secret Power. Even if we did, because this is technically a cave, it'd be Bite, which can cause flinch but really isn't what we need. Ideally, we want to go before Weavile. How are we going to do that? On a whim, I'd picked up Rock Tomb way back when after getting Rock Smash. I'd originally taught this move to Nidoking when I was stuck battling Barry. Thankfully, I was smart enough to use TMs after loading saves. If I hadn't, this may not have been possible. We just would have been holding out for that crit. Anyway, Rock Tomb. If it hits, it'll lower a Pokemon's speed by 1 stage. Turns out that 1 stage is just enough to let us go first after using it on Weavile, so if the stars align, then we may just have a chance. After an hour, they finally did. Against Houndoom, there's no problem whatsoever. Earthquake every time. That'll knock it out. Gyarados will then come out next. Intimidate lowers our attack by 1 stage. As long as Thunder hits, we're good. It does, and that's Gyarados down. Now's the real test. Along with Ice Punch, Weavile also uses Fake Out, which is just ugh. Of course, Weavile will go first with Ice Punch, and we're taken all the way down to 36 HP. Poison Point activates and will shave off some of its HP. Our Rock Tomb hits, its speed's lowered. This is the moment of truth. Are we going to go first? Is Fire Blast going to hit? Yes and yes. But we're still only at 51 HP now and basically can't miss with any of our Thunders from now on. Cyrus feels the Honchkrow, we're lining up Thunder. Thunder hits and one-shots, giving us a little bit of HP back to buffer against Crobat. Cyrus is on his last Pokemon. I know it's going to go first. We go with Thunder. Crobat uses Air Slash and misses. Wild. Thunder hits and it ends up critting. And the funny thing is, without the crit, it's not a KO on Crobat. Crazy stuff, but I'm not going to question it. That took like an hour. Now all we've got to do is capture Giratina and we can finally continue with our last batch. Given that the last gym is electric, Nidoking is part ground, and we have Earthquake, you can imagine how a battle like this would go. Volkner has a total of 4 Pokemon. They're different from what he had in Diamond and Pearl, and funnily enough, could have been a tougher battle because it included the water type Octillery and the normal type Ambipom. As it turns out, he's pure electric now. Due to this, we can comfortably sweep every single one of his Pokemon. We even managed to outspeed notoriously quick Pokemon like Jolteon and Raichu without so much as taking a hit. A little anticlimactic, but there are a number of significantly tougher battles waiting for us soon. Instead of the final rival encounter taking place in Victory Road, you fight Barry just before you challenge the Elite Four. His team's received quite the upgrade and we're in for a rather tough battle. The usual suspects are all here. His Staravia is now a Staraptor, which still has Intimidate, and his Prinplup is now an Empoleon. For the Staraptor, while we are around 10 levels above this thing, meaning we can outspeed it and knock it out with Thunder, there's nothing we can do about getting tagged with Intimidate. What's worse is that yet again, we're relying on special moves to see us through. And when the Empoleon's sent out, despite our level advantage, Thunder is still unable to one-shot the Empoleon. It'll then use Brine, and that move will clean house. With Nidoking left in red bar when Barry fields Snorlax, which not only has a bunch of HP but is also a special defensive tank, we are barely touching this thing at all. A move like Earthquake will barely do half, and then it'll use Body Slam and we're KO'd. And that becomes our life for a little while. If we're not getting knocked out by Empoleon, Snorlax is sweeping in to finish the job. Something has to change. Because our attack is so low, we'll have to rely on special moves. What special move might give us the advantage? Focus Blast, a 120 base power special fighting move. It's got abysmal accuracy, 70%, and probably won't one-shot Snorlax, but it's the best we've got. We roll into battle against Staraptor and take that Intimidate. Fortunately, or unfortunately I guess, we're relying solely on special attacks for this battle. Nidoking outspeeds and uses Thunder to get that one-shot. Next up, Barry will field the Empoleon. Thunder won't knock this thing out. Best case scenario is a Parahax or a crit, but we get neither. Empoleon then tags us with Brine and it does some hefty damage. Next turn, Earthquake's capable of finishing it off. At 52 HP, thanks to the power of Shell Bell, Snorlax is out. So far, we've been gambling on 70% accurate moves, which is pretty crazy. Another gamble pays off as Focus Blast hits and does just over half Snorlax. It then hits us with Body Slam, leaving us on just 13 HP. And it has Earthquake, by the way. Crazy it didn't use it, but we're then relying on another Focus Blast hit, which we get. Somehow, we've made it past Snorlax, and it's the first time that I've seen Barry's next Pokemon. Lucky for us, it's a Rapidash. We've got just the thing for that in Earthquake. Even with our lowered attack, that's still going to be an OHKO. Barry's penultimate Pokemon is the Roserade. Technically, this Pokemon is a lot better in its special defense stat than its physical defense, but we're not so hot on the physical attacking front. So it's a gamble, we go for Fire Blast, and it ends up paying off, but it's not quite over yet. Barry's final Pokemon is Heracross, Bug Fighting. Once again, we're forced to test our luck with Fire Blast, and once again, it pays off for a final time. In this battle at least. Though Barry's defeated and we've managed to get by on moves with questionable accuracy, that sort of luck can't hold up against the Elite Four. Before facing the Elite Four, there is still some prep that we need to do. One half of this is collecting some more rare candies from around the map. I was still trying to do this at a reasonably low level for the Pokemon that we're using, but we're aiming for consistency more than anything. I ended up relenting at 9 rare candies and wanted to stick to that all the way up to Cynthia. Another factor that I was aware of was our moves. I really do not like relying on powerful yet inaccurate special moves. There's no real good solution to this though. The best physical elemental moves that Nidoking can learn are the elemental punches. There's some hiker you can learn these moves from, but they require shards. The problem with getting shards is that there are only so many which you can pick up around the map. Others require you to either go to the Ironworks once a day, but you can't exchange them with the foreman guy, wherever he is, without getting into a battle, so it's ultimately a dead end. With the shards we have, we can only teach one move to Nidoking, so I went with Ice Punch. Will it be enough though? After stocking up on a few TMs from Veilstone City, we are finally ready to go into the Elite Four. Firstly, there's Aaron and his Bug-type Pokemon. We have very little to fear against his team because we have moves like Fire Blast. I start with Aaron at level 60 to see what the lay of the land is going to be like. A move like Fire Blast is capable of one-shotting its Pokemon if it hits. The main issue with him comes from his Vespiquen. It's bulkier than his other Pokemon and also has the pressure ability, which basically doubles our PP usage. The MO of this Pokemon is to buff itself with Defense Order, raising both its physical and special defense. After one of those, Fire Blast isn't a one-shot anymore. Our next best move, Ice Punch, then does less and less damage. Vespiquen also has Heal Order, so you can see where that's going. You're just stuck in a near endless healing loop, so you're better off just resetting. Another frustrating thing about being at this level is that Earthquake is not a one-shot on the Drapion. While taking a hit isn't the end of the world, it's not exactly a good indicator of what's to come. However, in terms of challenge, Aaron is the least of our worries. That's reserved for Bertha. At low levels, Bertha is a real roadblock. Her Pokemon are bulky and can cause Nidoking a ton of damage. Because we're part poison, we're weak to ground, and her Pokemon tend to have moves like Earth Power and Earthquake, which will cause us a ton of hurt. Her first Pokemon, the Whiscash, often goes for Sandstorm first turn, but will also use Earth Power to take us just past half HP. While defeating Whiscash is totally possible, Bertha will field the Hippowdon next. At our current level, we can't one-shot this thing. Ice Punch doesn't even do half, and then it'll use Earthquake to destroy us. That became a roadblock for a little while because we need a more powerful ice move. In the end, collecting all those shards was pretty useless. We do have a more powerful ice move in Blizzard. Again, 70% accuracy though, but even if Blizzard hits, it's not going to knock Hippowdon out outside of a crit. But if we've gotten past the Whiscash without taking a hit, we can tank a hit from Hippowdon. But Bertha will then heal Hippowdon, forcing us to rely on an inaccurate Blizzard a second time, which often doesn't work. On the rare occasion that we make it past Hippowdon into our next Pokemon Gliscor, that thing has Earthquake too. Not only that, but if Hippowdon's not outright attacked us, it's using Yawn. so we're asleep when Gliscor's out. It has no problem KOing us then, but let's say we get to Gliscor and we're not asleep. Is Blizzard going to do enough? Yes, when it hits. And after Gliscor, we'll then get Golem. Earthquake is actually an effective move here, however, Golem's extremely bulky and at 10 levels above it, we're not capable of knocking it out. Seems like at this level, our only choice is to rely on Blizzard again. After going battling Bertha for a while, this just wasn't working at our current level, so I used a few rare candies to take Nidoking to level 65. At this level, we are still not coming close to one-shotting Pokemon like Whiscash, though it is forcing Bertha to use a full restore, so that's something. At this level, Blizzard is capable of one-shotting Hippowdon if we get a good roll. While nothing has changed much with Gliscor, we still need Blizzard. A high roll of Earthquake is now capable of one-shotting the Golem. But then we get Rhyperior. At level 66, Earthquake can't take this thing out. It does decent damage, but it's not enough. Seems like Blizzard is our only option. In fact, the only time we actually make it past Rhyperior is thanks to a clutch freeze after using Blizzard. If it weren't for that, then we'd be done. So, not looking too good. If we do make it past Bertha, then we finally have a battle that's an absolute breeze in Flint. All his Pokemon are fire types. Again, this could have been more difficult if they were his Pokemon from Diamond and Pearl, but they ain't. At level 66, we will outspeed his entire team. Then, all we have to do is use Earthquake for a one-shot on every single member. An absolute cakewalk, and it will be every single time we run this gauntlet. Lucien, however, can be a little trickier. At first, I'd gone to the move relearner in Pastoria in order to teach Nidoking Mega Horn, a 120 power bug move with 85% accuracy. Obviously, with Psychic being weak to bug, it's a no-brainer, right? Well, this move works when it hits. It is capable of taking out the majority of Pokemon on his team, but feels kind of inconsistent when dealing with Pokemon that we're weak against and have no problem destroying us. For his Bronzong, we've got no choice but to rely on Fire Blast. Though this move can OHKO Bronzong, if we miss, we let this thing use Calm Mind to raise its special attack and defense. This means Fire Blast no longer one-shots, giving Bronzong an opportunity to use Psychic and wipe the floor with us. Lucien's final Pokemon, Gallade, is only weak to Flying and Ghost. Our best move would have been Shadow Claw, but that was unfortunately sacrificed at the altar of Barry way earlier in the game. There's Shadow Ball, but Gallade excels in its special defense, so I don't think it would have made a dent. Unfortunately, we can only rely on Earthquake for this, which means we're taking a hit. Full HP Psycho Cut won't OHKO us if it doesn't crit. So ideally, we can't be taking any damage from Bronzong along the way. But with that said, what level do we have to be at to make the Elite Four something close to consistent? The answer is everyone's favourite number, 69. Basically because that's all the rare candies that I could be bothered collecting. We are, of course, starting with Aaron. At level 69, our plan hasn't changed. It's going to be Fire Blast all the way, aside from Drapion, which is now a one-shot. We can't really miss any of these shots because we absolutely need to save one Fire Blast for Vespiquen. While we can tag a hit along the way, we'd still have to reset against Aaron's ace because we need to conserve our PP and not get into a protracted battle. If it all goes to plan, then we can move on to Bertha next. She remains the most inconsistent member of the Elite Four due to her damage ranges and the moves that we're relying on. To make this a boatload more consistent, we'd simply need better moves and to be at a higher level, but it is possible. For Whiscash, we're still not able to one-shot it. However, if we crit, then we certainly do. For Hippowdon, Blizzard has to hit. If it doesn't, you might as well reset because you won't be in a position to survive the entire battle. For a Gliscor, we'll be using another Blizzard for an OHKO. Then, after leveling up, we can take a breather on Golem because Earthquake will now consistently take it out. Unfortunately, our run of good luck ends at Rhyperior. Blizzard ends up missing and we're then hit with Avalanche. It does about a third, but in using a contact move, Rhyperior is now being poisoned and receives some tick damage. Even at level 70, Blizzard still isn't an OHKO on this Pokemon, but that tick damage just puts it in range so that when Blizzard hits, and it does, we can finish it off. Now we get a little intermission with Flint. Just as it was 5 levels below, that combo of outspeeding and Earthquake is capable of sweeping through his entire team. Along with gaining an extra level along the way, we need to use one of our 2 elixirs here because the game plan's changed. Gone are the days of relying on Mega Horn to one-shot Lucien's team. Now we pivoted to Earthquake. At first I was a little skeptical it'd make the ranges, but in doing this battle a lot, it proves to be the most consistent method. Earthquake will eat up his Mr. Mime, the Espeon, and Alakazam. For the Bronzong, we're forced to switch it up to Fire Blast, but as long as it doesn't miss, it'll give us a one-shot. But for Lucien's final Pokemon Gallade, we're in the same position as we were before. We can't OHKO it, though just like before, we can tank a Psycho Cut after using our first Earthquake. It'll heal with its Citrus Berry, but then we'll come in with that second Earthquake and the job is done. And that is as far as I could make it consistently, because the Elite Four is one thing, but the champion Cynthia is on another level. In terms of champions, she's probably got my favourite team because it's just so varied. She's even deadlier in the Gen 4 remakes. The difficulty in taking Cynthia on manifests in a couple of areas that kind of create a death by 1,000 cuts. Firstly, her Spiritomb. It has no weaknesses. We can only hit hard with a move like Earthquake, so outside of a crit, it's taken us 2 hits to finish it off. In that process, we're often getting tagged with Psychic, which will do about a quarter. But getting past it is pretty trivial. It's her next Pokemon, Milotic, where the pain really sets in. Our best move against Milotic is Thunder, but it's a special attacking move, and Milotic has extremely good special defense. A move like that will do over half, sure, but it's inaccurate. Then Milotic will come in with a Surf, and that's GG. And it's not because it'll knock us out, though it often does at low levels, it's because we're not in a good enough position to survive the rest of her team. In Red Bar, upon defeating Milotic, we'll see Garchomp. Yep, Blizzard can technically one-shot this thing, but it seems like it misses more than it hits, and then Garchomp will just knock us out. Okay, but let's say that you get past Garchomp, then what? Well, it's Togekiss. We're still in Red Bar, though the Shell Bell's helped out a bit, and we're then again potentially relying on a move like Blizzard to help us knock it out. The accuracy ain't helping. Togekiss will then use a move like Air Slash, which can cause flinch too if it doesn't just knock us out. All in all, we're in a situation that frustratingly relies so heavily on a bunch of inaccurate moves that to have come through the gauntlet of moves that hardly hit so far, it's just extremely tedious. The option would be to find the other 6-ish rare candies and use them to get through, but we can't really do anything about move choice outside of grinding coins at the game corner. Ultimately, I just decided to save in front of Cynthia to spare myself the insanity, but that doesn't make it easier, oh no, it simply makes it more likely to win. Finally, we get this battle. Against Spiritomb, I've taken to using Ice Punch first off because this will always be a 2-shot, but why Ice Punch? Well, on occasion, like this time, it can freeze. This puts us in a position to get past Spiritomb without taking a single hit. Awesome. Now for Milotic, we've totally abandoned Thunder because if it's going to be a 2-shot, we might as well make it more consistent, which is where Earthquake comes in. Yeah, we're forced to take a hit and just look at the damage, it's not even a crit, but we're left on 86 HP. In this range, Milotic won't heal, which then allows us to use another Earthquake to finish it off. 2 down. For Garchomp, though we may be able to tank a hit, we still want Blizzard to hit and give us a 1-shot. After leveling up, our roll's good and we hit Garchomp. With the help of the Shell Bell, we're now taken to over half HP with 124. When Togekiss is fielded, I'm not risking anything with Blizzard and I'm just ready to take a hit. Using Ice Punch will be a 2-shot, and because of our higher HP, Togekiss likes to use Water Pulse. While effective and thankfully we're not confused, it doesn't do a ton of damage, so our second Ice Punch can knock it out. Now, I'd reached Roserade once before but had made the mistake of using Fire Blast. But Fire Blast is super effective, right? Yeah, but this thing has awesome special defense, so it won't be a 1-shot. Because its physical defense is so poor, we can use Ice Punch instead, which will give us an OHKO, even though it's a crit this time. At 100 HP, Cynthia's on her final Pokemon. She saved the best and easiest until last. Lucario isn't quicker than us. We have a super effective move in Earthquake. This battle's done. It's a 1-shot. At level 72, Nidoking was able to do it. I don't think I've quite had a run where I was forced to use such a diverse roster of moves to get the job done. That's why Nidoking has such an MVP status in the older games, because it's a jack of all trades. Looking back now, I had no idea how much of a pain Intimidate would be. It can just totally cripple your offensive capabilities, and I'd never even factored it into my planning. Nor did I realize how much Shell Bell would end up coming in clutch after picking it up. All in all, Nidoking really struck a balance between challenging and fun that some of the legendaries and pseudo-legendaries can struggle to capture. But hey, maybe you could have made the run even easier. Feel free to let me know. If you have an idea for an interesting run in the same style, let me know. And if you want to like and subscribe, go for it. Until next time, have a good one.